Welcome to NTD News. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Here are today's top stories. How the GOP-led Senate confirmed judges at a record pace as House Democrats worked on investigating, then impeaching President Trump. More on how this affected Congress's other priorities. China announces tariffs cut on more than 850 imports next year as Beijing looks to boost its economy, where growth has recently slowed to a 20-year low. Saudi Arabia hands out 5 death sentences for the killing of a journalist in Turkey. Mysteries remain about the case. And Shen Yun Performing Arts is back to the U.S. this year with a whole new program. Boeing today fired its CEO following a year of turmoil in the wake of 2 disastrous crashes of its 737 MAX jetliner.
Boeing on Monday ousted its chief executive officer following a year of turmoil in the wake of 2 disastrous crashes of its 737 MAX jetliner. Dennis Muhlenberg faced intense criticism and calls for his firing for his handling of the crashes, which killed 346 people, and the subsequent 737 MAX grounding. He was hauled in front of Congress to explain what, if any, penalty he might pay personally for the tragedies.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Muhlenberg. You said you're accountable. What does accountability mean? Are you taking a cut and pay? Are you working for free from now on until you can cure this problem? These people's relatives are not coming back. They're gone.
Speculation that Muhlenberg would be pushed out had been circulating in the industry for months, especially in October when the board stripped him of his chairman title. Last week, the company announced it would suspend production of the 737 MAX after pressing regulators for months to get the jets back into the air.
At full thrust.
And Friday, the firm suffered another embarrassment when a test of its Starliner spacecraft failed to dock at the International Space Station. Monday's announcement seems to make clear that Boeing wants to start 2020 on a different foot. The company's shares, which have fallen more than 20% since March, rose more than 2% in early trading. The company said the current chairman, David Calhoun, will take over as CEO and president in January.
One of Congress's main accomplishments this year was getting President Trump's judicial nominees confirmed by the Republican-controlled Senate. Trump has had more judges confirmed in 3 years than any of the last 5 presidents.
Last week, the Senate voted to confirm 1 judge and end debate on 11 others. This brings the total number of Trump's confirmed judicial nominees to 187 in the past 3 years, and that includes 2 members of the Supreme Court. By comparison, the Senate confirmed 124 of President Obama's judicial nominations in his first 3 years in office. In total, Obama had 329 of his nominations confirmed. The Senate GOP has focused on confirming Trump's judges, while the House has been busy with investigating and ultimately impeaching the president. This has shaped the entire year in Congress. As a result, Congress delayed doing its most essential jobs, approving an annual budget, ensuring national defense, and protecting America's international interests until the final moments of the 11th hour.
The Taliban is saying it is responsible for the death of a U.S. service member in Afghanistan today, even though peace negotiations between the Taliban and the U.S. are continuing. The Taliban said U.S. and Afghan government forces were targeted during a raid. The U.S. military confirmed that a service member was killed in action. Their name is being withheld until their next of kin is notified. Between 12,000 and 13,000 U.S. troops are currently serving in Afghanistan as part of a U.S.-led NATO mission to train, assist, and advise Afghan forces. At least 20 Americans have been killed in combat in Afghanistan this year. More than 2,400 U.S. service members have died in total since the start of the 18-year war. And a Saudi Arabian court has sentenced 5 people to death and 3 more to prison for the assassination last year of Washington Post contributor Jamal Khashoggi.
5 people have been sentenced to death for the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, Saudi Arabia's public prosecutor said on Monday. 3 more people have been handed jail terms totaling 24 years for covering up the crime. A further 3 suspects on trial in secretive proceedings in Riyadh were found not guilty. It's 14 months since Khashoggi walked into the Saudi consulate in Istanbul and was never seen again. He was there to receive papers ahead of his wedding, but instead he was murdered. His body was reportedly dismembered and removed from the building. The whereabouts of his remains are shrouded in mystery. Khashoggi was a US resident and critic of Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the kingdom's de facto ruler. His death caused a global uproar, tarnishing the Crown Prince's image. The CIA and some Western governments have said they believe Prince Mohammed ordered the killing, but Saudi officials say he had no role. The names of those found guilty haven't been released. The verdicts can still be appealed.
At least 51 people were injured when over 69 vehicles piled up at a major highway in Virginia yesterday morning. According to Virginia State Police, 69 cars were involved and 51 people were taken to the hospital in the accident near Williamsburg. State officials shut down both the eastbound and westbound lanes of the I-64 to prevent people from stopping to view the crash. They're warning drivers to be cautious while driving in foggy and icy conditions, especially on bridges. The investigation is still ongoing. President Trump addressed a crowd of young conservatives at Turning Point USA last night. He took the opportunity to criticize Democrats' delay in sending impeachment articles to the Senate, as well as to highlight some recent achievements, such as progress on a trade deal with China. Let's take a look.
You know what? So unfair. It's so unfair. She has no case.
In his speech at Turning Point USA, President Trump talked about House Speaker Nancy Pelosi delaying sending articles of impeachment to the Senate for a trial. The Democrat-controlled House voted along partisan lines to impeach the president earlier this week.
And I guess the vote was like 196 or something to nothing. We had 3 Democrats coming to our side, so we have to say it was a bipartisan vote. You call that bipartisan? Hey.
But Republicans control the Senate and will almost certainly acquit Trump of the charges. Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer remain at an impasse with Republicans over the conditions of the trial and whether new witnesses can be called. The impeachment proceedings haven't seemed to interfere with the Trump administration's plans, with the president taking the time to talk about some of their latest achievements.
We also took the toughest ever action against China, and as a result, we just achieved a breakthrough on the trade deal, and we'll be signing it very shortly. They're already buying billions and billions of dollars of products, agricultural products. And I also officially created the 6th branch of the U.S. Armed Forces, the Space Force.
Trump was met with enthusiastic cheers from young conservatives attending the event. Despite the delay, his impeachment trial is expected to take place in January.
Democratic Senator Doug Jones of Alabama says he could possibly vote no in President Trump's impeachment case. On ABC's This Week, Jones said he needs a full and complete picture to make a decision on the allegations against Trump. If he finds a rationale for Trump's behavior toward Ukraine, he says he would vote against impeachment. Jones is considered to be among the more moderate members of the party in the Senate. Alabama is still considered overwhelmingly Republican, and he is facing a tough re-election fight for his seat next year. And China will lower tariffs on products ranging from frozen pork and avocados to some types of semiconductors next year, as Beijing looks to boost imports amid a slowing economy and a trade war with the U.S.
China will implement temporary import tariffs next year, which are lower than the most favored nation tariffs on more than 850 products. Beijing and Washington cooled their drawn-out trade war earlier this month, announcing a Phase 1 agreement that would reduce some U.S. tariffs in exchange for more Chinese purchases of American farm products and other goods. The tariff rate for frozen pork will be cut to 8% from 12% as China copes to plug a huge supply gap after a severe pig disease decimated its hog herd. The tariff rate for frozen avocado was cut to 7% from 30%. Import tariffs on multi-component semiconductors will be cut to 0. China's economy is expanding at its weakest rate in nearly 30 years and could face more downward pressure next year.
The United States-Mexico-Canada agreement passed the House last week and is expected to get Senate approval next year. What's in it and how is it going to impact the U.S. economy? We talked to some industry experts and get their takes.
The U.S. House of Representatives overwhelmingly voted to pass the USMCA last Thursday.
The bill is passed.
The trade deal promises to bring freer markets and fairer trade among the three countries, and also provides stronger protection for labor and the environment. The deal includes tougher requirements for automakers to use North American-made parts. Experts say while it might raise the cost to build cars and trucks, it will also encourage car makers to increase production in the U.S. in the long run, would ultimately benefit workers.
Even if it does cost the automakers something more, consumers are ultimately going to be willing to bear those costs.
The agreement also requires nearly half of auto parts to be made by workers earning at least $16 an hour. It will likely shift car assembly north from Mexico to encourage American manufacturing.
Will provide stronger protection for U.S. jobs and I think level the playing field relative to labor markets in all three trading partners.
One provision of the deal will give U.S. farmers more access to Canada's market for dairy, poultry, and eggs.
For farmers to have access to the North American market is very important.
Fowler says the freer flow of goods will also create new opportunities for the transportation industry. For example, more need for temperature-controlled transportation across the U.S.-Canadian border. Critics say the USMCA did not make enough progress compared to NAFTA, but one expert says it gives businesses the certainty they need.
It's quite clear that business groups in the U.S. and elsewhere support this deal because they think it's the most important thing for them to eliminate that uncertainty for the future.
Others say that the agreement may serve as a template for future trade deals and gives President Trump a stronger hand in negotiating with Beijing.
But more developed economies could sign on to those services trade provisions. Japan has already indicated that it's fine with the digital chapter, the services trade chapter. But if we say in 2020 we're going to expand USMCA, that will put pressure on China because it will turn us back to saying we can sign trade agreements.
And it also shows that the two sides of politics can still find common ground.
In this rather difficult and challenging political climate, Republicans and Democrats came together to support the USMCA deal. So in that sense, it is a win for both sides, which if it is good for the American people, that's the way that it should be in government.
According to an estimate released by the United States International Trade Commission earlier this year, this new trade partnership would boost the economy by $68 billion and create over 170,000 new jobs. Reporting by Kitty Wong and Catherine Wen, NTD News.
Former White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders is considering a run for Arkansas governor. At a student summit in West Palm Beach, Florida, Sanders said she is, quote, very seriously looking at a possible run. She added that she loves Arkansas, her home state. And Hong Kong riot police tried to disperse protesters with pepper spray yesterday, following a largely peaceful rally in support of China's ethnic Uyghurs.
More than 1,000 people rallied calmly, waving Uyghur flags and posters and signs reading Free Uyghur, Free Hong Kong. The protest comes after a midfielder in English soccer club Arsenal caused a furor in China for criticizing the Chinese regime's treatment of the Muslim ethnic minority.
I think that basically we're all fighting against a totalitarian regime. And because of that, we find solidarity in the Uyghurs with East Turkestan.
Mesut Özil is a German Muslim of Turkish origin. He tweeted that Uyghurs were warriors who resist persecution.
I think he should disregard China and do what he thinks is right. The whole world will stand with him.
Some protesters called for Hong Kong's independence from China and removed a Chinese flag from its pole. Although the organizers were able to stop the flag burning from happening, riot police rushed and used pepper spray. Witnesses say one police officer drew a pistol and pointed it toward the crowd but didn't fire. The crowd retaliated by throwing water bottles. Protesters plan to gather in 5 malls on Christmas Eve and count down to Christmas near the harbor front in the bustling Tsim Sha Tsui district. The protesters are planned for Wednesday, Christmas Day.
British supermarket chain Tesco says it has suspended a Chinese supplier after a girl found a plea of help inside a Christmas card bought at the store. The card was manufactured in China and, according to the note, using forced labor.
An unexpected Christmas message.
The card said, "We are forbidden prisoners forced to work against our will. Please contact Peter Humphrey."
6-year-old Florence Whitcomb was filling out Christmas cards when she discovered a call for help from prisoners in China.
The card had come from somebody imprisoned in Shanghai and was raising human rights concerns and asked whoever found the note to pass it on to Peter Humphreys.
Peter Humphrey is a British former journalist and corporate investigator who served prison time in China for selling private records of Chinese citizens. Florence's father contacted him over LinkedIn.
I felt very shocked, but I also felt a responsibility to pass it on.
Humphrey says he thinks he knows who wrote the note, but won't give the name.
Well, I spent 2 years in captivity in Shanghai between 2013 and 2015. And my final 9 months of that captivity was in this very prison, in this very cell block where this message has come from.
He says when he was there, manufacturing was voluntary. Prisoners worked for pennies, but buy daily necessities like soap and toothpaste.
What has happened in the last year or so is that work has become compulsory.
The Christmas card came from supermarket chain Tesco, Britain's largest retailer. The company says it has suspended the supplier and removed its cards from store shelves. The Chinese Foreign Ministry dismissed the incident as a farce created by Mr. Humphrey. But this isn't the first such message. In 2012, a woman from Oregon found a similar letter in a box of Halloween decorations. It garnered international attention and was the subject of the 2018 documentary Letter from Masanja.
Iraqis are protesting the candidate nominated to replace their prime minister. The protests are part of many over dissatisfaction with the government. Hundreds have died in the violence.
Iraqis hit the street in protests over their nomination of a new prime minister.
They want to appoint a prime minister, paying no heed to the people who have been protesting against them. We don't want anyone they nominate.
Over 450 have been killed since protests began on October 1st. They're protesting government corruption, influence from Iran, and a system they see as keeping many in poverty.
Enough bloodshed, enough martyrs, enough wounded protesters.
Iraq missed a deadline to appoint a new prime minister after the previous one stepped down in the midst of protests. The government was set to vote on a new electoral law on Monday, which is one of the demands protesters have pushed for.
Up next, Afghanistan's election results are out after being delayed for months, but candidates are already contesting the results. More on that after the break.
We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. The Epoch Times is independent. We're not controlled by any special interests, and we never will be. The Epoch Times is a non-partisan media. That means we don't stand for any political party. This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would ensnare this country in ignorance, and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
The results of Afghanistan's presidential election came in last night. They show incumbent President Ashraf Ghani secured a slim majority, but his victory could be short-lived. According to the Independent Election Commission, Ghani won over 50% of the votes, while his rival Abdullah secured over 39%.
Our goal at the State Builder team is to serve each Afghan equally in this country.
Abdullah has already challenged the results.
Only the clean votes can determine the outcome of the election, while our right in seeking justice, which is transparency of the election, do not happen. We allow ourselves every other legitimate option.
His office issued a statement saying he would contest the numbers. The Independent Electoral Commission says the final count could change. The election results were expected in October after the September 28th election, but the results were only released on Sunday. The delays were due to technical issues and allegations of fraud from candidates. The election result also comes at a critical time for Afghanistan, as the United States is showing more interest in negotiating a peace settlement with the Taliban to end a war that has dragged on for more than 18 years. Coconut wine in the Philippines has turned the holiday season into a tragedy. At least 11 people have been killed after drinking the wine, many of them at a Christmas party.
At least 11 people are dead and 300 are in treatment in the Philippines, apparently poisoned by coconut wine. Also known there as lambanog, it's a popular drink in the country's provinces, especially during the holidays. Local authorities said Monday many of those affected were at a Christmas party. Making and selling unregulated lambanog is common in the Philippines. A spokesman for the Philippine General Hospital in Manila explains why that can be dangerous.
Lambanog is fermented from the sap of a coconut flower. If it is fermented, it produces methanol during the fermentation. Sometimes the lambanog being sold has too much methanol content.
Methanol is far more toxic than the alcohol typically found in wine, beer, or spirits. Local media say last year, 21 people died after drinking coconut wine.
Coming up, what's being hailed as the first printed Christmas card goes on display in London. More on that after the break.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format, where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled, and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
Thousands of years of history in 2.5 hours. Shen Yun Performing Arts has started its 2020 World Tour in the U.S. with an all-new program. Let's find out what the audience is saying about it.
Their athleticism and the gracefulness of the entire company was just mesmerizing. I loved it.
And we've been looking to come to see it for 2 years, and so we're very happy that we did get to see it tonight.
Shen Yun Performing Arts starts its 2020 season in Purchase, New York, and Berkeley, California. Audiences were amazed by their artistic skills.
Wow, it was just absolutely great. The music, the visuals, the way they combined, it was an experience unlike any other that I've ever had.
I was stunned and amazed. It was awesome. I think the dancers, the performers were amazing. They executed everything flawlessly. The music, very, very soothing.
Shen Yun, based in New York, travels the world each year with its mission to revive the 5,000 years of Chinese culture through dance and music.
I only see communist China, you know? I mean, that's all we see in American TV. So to see something like Shen Yun introducing us and showing us something like China believing in the creator, in flowers and in beautiful colors, it's just amazing to me. It's a different China that I haven't seen.
That fact that it's 5,000 years of culture being brought, that what we're seeing are performances that might have been seen in some form over the course of centuries and millennia, that's just fantastic. It's really enjoyable to be part of that continuum.
For thousands of years, ancient Chinese culture placed a great emphasis on the divine. Continuing the tradition, the spiritual connotation displayed by Shen Yun has resonated with the audience.
Love and the heavenly, to be a little more closer, I guess, to God or the Creator or to heaven.
Shen Yun will continue its performances in Connecticut and California during Christmas. NTD News, New York.
We may be living in an era of e-cards and instant messages. And in a museum in London is displaying the world's first printed Christmas card. Jane Wirral reports from London.
Christmas cards, a custom that started in the 1800s and continues to this day, even with digital technology.
Real tangible things, books, printed matter, there's still very much a market for that at Christmas.
Here at the Charles Dickens Museum, which was Dickens' former home, is what's been hailed as the world's first ever printed Christmas card, on loan from a book dealer in San Francisco. It was designed in 1843 by Henry Cole, but it wasn't an instant hit.
It wasn't a very popular idea at the time. It wasn't until a few decades later that millions of cards were winding their way around the country at Christmas.
In 1877, 4.5 million Christmas cards were sent. The UK was the first country to go through the Industrial Revolution. This meant that cards could be printed cheaply and transported easily. The commercialisation of Christmas here began more quickly.
And of course, from 1840 onwards, you had the penny post, so you could send a card anywhere in the UK for a penny.
He said countries like the US and Germany sent people to observe the penny post in the UK and bring back their ideas. It was an era that shaped our modern custom of gifting Christmas cards today. And according to the Greeting Card Association, the tradition of sending printed cards is still going strong. Jane Wirral, NTD News, London.
Up next, mixed reviews didn't stop Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker from coming in first at the weekend box office. Find out how its opening compares to previous Star Wars movies after the break. The conclusion to the 9-movie saga started by George Lucas in 1977 arrived in theaters this weekend. How did The Rise of Skywalker perform at the box office? Here is the countdown.
Frozen 2 slipped from second to third with 12.3 million, and Jumanji: The Next Level went from first to second with 26.1 million, bringing its domestic haul to over $100 million after just 2 weekends in theaters.
We're not alone. Good people will fight if we lead them.
Even mixed reviews couldn't stop Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker from rising to first place. The last film in the 9-movie Skywalker saga brought in an estimated $175.5 million. The impressive sounding number, though, is nowhere near what the 2 films leading up to it opened with. 2015's The Force Awakens debuted to $248 million, while 2017's The Last Jedi bowed with $220 million.
And that's all for now. Thanks for tuning in. Join us again tonight. I'm Tiffany Meyer.